It says we're live, but it hasn't come up on my screen yet. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Faith First Leader. I am so excited to be back with you today. I feel like it's been forever. I pretty much took off December. The Lord said, come away. And so I did. So I haven't been super present here or social media for a little bit, and it's been really nice. So but I'm glad to be back with you, excited to be here for this conversation about abiding in Christ and what that looks like, and having a very special guest with me today, the wonderful, amazing, just such a good friend to me, Sabrina Hammonds, who is owner, CEO, founder, all the things of Kingdom Connections Media and Podcasting Agency. Did I get that right?
Close enough. It's good.
Close enough. Okay. But y'all probably already know her because she's been with me so many times for our prayer and prophetic hour. So we're just going to hop in today. I do see we have a couple people already joining us. Hey, Melissa. Hey, Cynthia. So excited that y'all are here. I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about John 15 and being the vine and the branch and what that looks like. And so we just want to bring this conversation forward for y'all. Not that we have all the answers, but just to talk about what it looks like and kind of the process that I've been through. And maybe Sabrina wants to share what her process has been like in really discovering how to be I love how it says in the Mirror translation, it says seamless union. The way it describes, it doesn't say, well, it does say abiding in there too, but it uses this phrase seamless union, and I just love that so much. So Sabrina, what kind of, I guess, take us back to a few years ago when this kind of sparked for you of like, I know there's more, and or what was the feeling at the time that you were like, you knew that intimacy was the thing that you needed to pursue?
Yeah, I think it really started with for whatever reason, I felt this discontentment with like this walk with the Lord and feeling like this cannot be what we're supposed to be doing, because we were going to church very faithfully and we were very involved in a lot of things. And I would notice different people worshiping in church, and it just looked like they were so free and just unabandoned. And I didn't know why I didn't feel like that. Like I would see them and think there's got to be something they know that I don't know. And how can I, like, what are they holding out? What's going on? And it was just that. And maybe the Lord was just having me to notice certain things to spark those wonderings. And that, what does this look like to live the quote unquote Christian life? I don't really know. But I knew that there was not, I guess, that level of fulfillment that I felt like should be there. And the shift was really when I didn't know what to do, but we had all that time in 2020 to literally do nothing. And because my husband and I were teaching, we were at home, and there was really nothing for us to plan or prepare. And so I just started getting up early. And the one time I got up early and sat in the chair in the quiet, and I had no idea what question to ask, or it was just like, I'm going to sit here because I know there's got to be something more. And I just remember that feeling of, what is it? There's more to this. And I didn't open my Bible. I didn't have any music on or anything. And then I remember the Lord very clearly. I just heard, I love you and I've always been here.
Mm,
And I've thought about that moment so many times over the past several years.
yeah.
And I've said out loud, that was the first time I've ever heard God speak. But I've realized he's been speaking this whole time. But I've never heard him that clearly. Like I've never sat in the quiet like that and heard and known immediately that's the Lord talking to me.
Yeah.
So it was like he would just, there would be noticings or there would be impressions or there would be, I think this is what the Lord is saying, but it
Mm,
was never like that. And so I really didn't know until that moment
mm,
just how personal that God is. And like that right there was the pivotal moment that it wrecked me.
yeah. And I've heard similar things from so many people, like late in 2019, early 2020. It was just like, God was just like, here I am. Like,
Yeah.
like there was this corporate, and of course, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't feel like it was a corporate thing. It feels very personal, right?
Uh-huh.
But now, a few years later, looking back at it, it seems to be he was doing this corporate move of just drawing in his
Uh,
bride,
yes.
like
Yes. Mm,
the level of intimacy, very similar to you. It was like I would have said prior to my encounter with him in 2020 that I would have said I don't know that I've ever heard the Lord. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
and again, hindsight, looking back at it now, I'm like, he's been talking my whole life and I didn't know that
Didn't
it was
know.
him. But there was something in in 2020, in that moment of encounter with him, where he became so real
Yeah.
that it was suddenly like, this is the thing that I've been looking for. And I didn't
Yeah.
know how to articulate like what it even was. And I remember being on the phone with a friend and telling her that, like, there's something, and I don't even know how to tell you what it is, but I need something, and I think you have it.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Because it was like you were describing those people at church. Like there was just something so different about her and the relationship that she had with the Lord that I was like, that is not at all. I don't know what it's like she was speaking a different language,
Yeah.
but we were talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
But we couldn't, it was just totally different. It was totally different. And so, yeah, that started the journey with me and her kind of mentoring me and like, and then having the encounter with the Lord himself and him showing me that I was his bride. And that's the whole thing that just wrecks me every time you know, um, but it's really what we're talking about is what he's saying here in John 15, this union with
Yeah.
this entanglement, that there's such an intimacy that you don't know, like the vine and the branch, right? You don't know where one stops and the other one begins. It's just all one piece.
Yeah.
And that's what people are looking for, but they don't know how to articulate that's what I'm looking for. Or
Yeah.
they think that's really scary. I don't know if I want to do that. I get those two reactions usually. Um, and the what I have found in working with people, that fear is coming from a lack of trust, right? Like it's too scary to be that vulnerable and intimate with somebody that I don't really trust. And that was the thing for me that I realized I don't really trust God.
Mm.
I've heard my whole life he loves me, but I don't know if he really likes me. Like, would he want to hang out with me? I don't
Yeah.
know. You know, it was that kind of like I don't know that I really trust him, and I had a lot of hurt that needed to be healed, and it's come through this union, through this intimacy. Has it been like a similar thing for you, or what has the journey kind of been?
I feel like after like in that moment, going back to that one moment, that first moment, I just started bawling. And so I feel like I wept for I don't know how long. But
Hmm.
then after that, like after I gained my composure, I began to grapple with lack of understanding. Like I began to go back and kind of like, wait a minute. We're talking about the creator of the universe here. Like we're talking about the one that created me. Like, how is this? And I just remember this out loud, part of it was out loud, part of it was in my head conversation, trying to logically figure out what was going on in that moment. And so I think that really was, I'm not going to say a hindrance because it didn't necessarily hinder me, but it was something that I wrestled with. And sometimes I still find myself wrestling with scripture on the logical side. Like, I don't have any understanding for this. And I had no understanding. You mean all this, it was like I didn't even have the right, couldn't even articulate full sentences. I just kept thinking the creator of in I what? Like this cannot be. How is this possible? You know, and so the more that I kind of went along in the journey and then meeting you and then hearing about union and there's no separation and I'm just like I don't understand how this is possible, you know? But along the way, though, God just continues to remind me I don't need your understanding for you to receive what it is that is true. And I think that has been when you talk about like God's love and because I think in that moment, that is what was happening. He was just because he said, I love you and I've always been here. And so then I began to see these like little movie clips of my life. And there were incredibly difficult moments that he was just showing me. And he was saying, I was there. I was there. And those were times when I was running.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like he was showing me this love that is extravagant that I can't even understand and reason in my head. He was showing me I was there and I loved you then. I loved when you were running from me. And so I think it's been a lot of it is the receiving
Hmm.
without having an understanding. You can't really it's extravagant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you talked, you mentioned receiving there, because I feel like that's somewhere we need to really dig into, because that is the number one struggle that I see in my clients, right? Because they're these high performers, they're used to doing, doing, doing. It's all about the doing, it's about performance, it's about like my validation comes from what I do. And there's probably not consciously, but subconsciously, there's a belief like I have to do things to earn love from people or earn love from God. That was definitely my story. And so these women that will come into the program, it's so incredibly difficult to get them to just stop and just be here. Like give me
Yeah.
30 seconds. Just be here with me for 30 seconds. And it seems to be the hardest thing. And I totally get it because that was me too. Like I think I've
Mm-hmm.
story like for me 10 seconds is where I started. Like that was difficult to sit for 10 seconds without my mind just like, like going off the rails. So I get it, but talk to me about how that has been for you coming into the program and like, okay, she's telling me there's nothing to do. What do you do with that? Right? Because that is one of the first things we kind of jump into is like receiving, being able to receive from the Lord.
Yeah, I think that is really, really difficult because like you, I am a doer. I have always been a doer. And even the very idea that God loves me the same before I've done anything.
Yeah.
Like like for the day, if I could get up and start the day like he loves me without like I haven't done anything yet. That's really hard.
Mhm.
And to understand how to practice being and receiving and really just doing the thing without having an understanding of what this even means or how this is going to affect me. I think that's what I had to stop and just, okay, I don't really understand this. This is not how I work. This is not how I grow. Like right in my head, this is
Yeah.
not how I grow. I grow because I put in the work. I do something. And you're telling me I need to sit in the quiet and first I need to learn how to receive from the Lord. Okay, this is really uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it. And it was just a few seconds at first because my mind was distracted.
Mhm.
Um, I was questioning my own love for the Lord. Like this, like I'm supposed to receive this extravagant love, but how much love do I even have to, and wondering like, can I, am I loving the Lord extravagantly too? And so it was all of those things that were coming up, in the beginning.
Mhm.
And so it took, I think, several times really before it was just, okay, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to receive. And then realizing what that was doing for me on the inside.
Mhm.
Like it was just wrecking me
Yeah. Yeah.
in a way that I didn't even know I needed.
Mhm. Mhm. Because it goes back to that trust piece again, right? Because if we're doing for people, that's not trust building, right? You may be building up their idea of trusting in you. Like, look at me, I'm reliable, I show up, I work hard, I do the things, but it's not reciprocal, right? You're not building trust. It's not a relationship to where you can say, I really trust that person, right? It's not set up to build trust with the other person. And so to just say, we're just going to sit here together, it's scary.
And it can feel so unproductive
Yes.
if you're someone that really just
Yes.
feels the need
It feels
to,
super unproductive.
yes, like I should be reading the word right now, Lord. Like that is productive, right? I should be, I should be praying. I should be praying to, um,
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's all the shoulds of performance. And
yes,
it becomes a list of things that I got to check off because so and so says, or church says, or whatever says, this is what your morning routine is supposed to be, and this is how your relationship with God is supposed to look, and you're supposed to worship and then read your Bible and pray and
yes,
do all these things. And God says, you don't have to do any of that.
yeah.
I enjoy it when you do, but I also enjoy it when you don't. What? Like,
Yeah.
what?
And then it's like
What do you
at
say?
some point, yeah,
Wait, what? But it was in that moment that I realized I viewed it as a have to. I
yeah,
viewed it as an obligation. I wasn't doing it because I actually wanted to do it.
yeah.
When he said to me, you don't have to, I'm like, I don't know how to get my head around. I don't have to.
And then it's like pressure. There's this, you know, after you're kind of walking this out and sometimes you walk it out even without having the understanding, but
Mm.
it's like along the way somewhere there is revelation that God gives us, and then we begin to have the experiential knowledge, and it goes from up here and walking it out to, wait a minute, something is changing, and then it's like this pressure of, this is what it looks like, has to, all these things. And
Yes.
then you're just like, oh my gosh, there's such joy that I am finding that I didn't have before, because
Mhm.
I'm just like in here because I want to dig into this word. I want to just spend time, and there's this joy that wasn't there before. And then you realize, I
Mm.
think there's a relationship thing that is beginning to happen.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's reciprocal, and I don't think we view God that way. At least for me, I grew up Baptist, and it was very much like, no, it was it wasn't taught that it was a relationship, or that it was reciprocal in the sense of, if you do this, God will do this.
Yes.
But that isn't real relationship, right? That's teaching performance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I I I spent a couple of months every single day sitting with the Lord and just saying, I'm here. No music, no Bible, none of the stuff you're supposed to do. Just being with him. And like it was the most, it was joyful. I don't I don't want to say to people it wasn't difficult. It was hard.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of things that he, like, they needed to be healed, right? And like you were saying, those movie images kind of, right? Like, he took me to different memories that were really difficult, and
Mm-hmm.
said, that's where I was. Like, he would show me where he was in the room in those moments, and that's when I started to realize how much accusation I had against him.
Mm.
And just realizing, like, I had been blaming him for things and
That
saying,
had
you weren't
happened.
there, you weren't there, like all these things in my life where I thought he wasn't there, and he just so lovingly, this is the part that I really want to, like, I think, stress for people, because you're scared initially, but then when you start doing that and seeing, like, how loving he is, to want to take you back to those times and show you, I
Yeah.
was there. I
Yeah.
was there. It was so incredibly healing. It was difficult, but it was also so incredibly joyful at the same time, that just, it's hard to articulate for people, like, the pain you think you're going to have is so worth the joy and love and peace that comes with it.
Yeah.
They're not exclusive of each other. He doesn't say, we're going to deal with this first and then you get to have the joy and peace. And no, like, it's happening simultaneously when you're allowing him into that healing process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so indescribable. Like, I know I'm not doing justice to it, but it's just so good. But it reminds me of what we were talking about earlier in John 15:2, where all these translations that say he cuts off, they use the language of cutting off and pruning.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like that's such harsh language, because yes, that's what's happening, but it doesn't feel like you think it's going to feel. And so I wanted to read it from a different translation, from the Mirror translation. It says, every offshoot in me that does not bear fruit, he lifts up from the ground and fastens it to the stake. And every fruit bearing part he dresses in order to maximize its yield. That sounds completely different than if you're doing something wrong, he's going to cut you off. Because that's the way
Yes.
I've heard it.
That's the way I've heard it too. That if you do not bear fruit, that
Mhm.
then you are disconnected from the Lord and he separates himself from you. That's what I thought too.
Yeah. And it's
And
not true.
that's the picture that I got. And so therefore it for me had to be about I have got to do this right. I have got to figure out how to do this walk with him the right way because I want to bear fruit. Because he says if I don't, that there is a cutoff.
Yeah.
And in the Passion Translation, it says that he cares for the branches connected to me by lifting and propping up the fruitless
Mm.
branches and pruning every fruitful branch to yield a greater harvest.
Yeah. And that's a completely different picture to see he's lifting you up, he's propping you up, he's taking care of you, he's dressing you, right? He says, I am the vine dresser.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful picture. And I did some research on um, different ways that grapevines grow. And there are parts of the world where they allow the vine to grow in the sand until a certain point, and then they'll come and put a stake just under it. So it's almost like a cascade, but it's still low to the ground, right? It looks very different than vineyards I've been to here in Georgia, where there's a pole and the vine is up here,
Uh-huh.
and, you know, um, but they keep it in the sand. It's so delicate. I don't know, something about the aeration of it, getting air and light to it, and somehow that I don't remember all the things. This was like a couple years ago. I watched this thing about the vines because it was so interesting, and it's mostly in the Middle East. So the people hearing Jesus speak this
Uh-huh.
would have seen the picture. They probably could have looked, right there, and there was a vineyard probably right there, like they're all over.
Yeah.
So to think about this, like this part that isn't bearing fruit, we're just going to lift that up a little bit so that it can get more air, it can get more sunlight, it can grow. That's what it's
Yeah.
doing. So I love that picture, and I really felt we needed to discuss that because there is this imagery used of him cutting you off or cutting parts off. And yes, you need to allow him to remove the stuff that isn't serving you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a painful process like people think it's going to be. And so I just want to encourage people, like, it's not scary. It doesn't have to be that. um like he knows each one of us so specifically. He's going to
Yeah.
come to you in the way that you need, that he knows that you can respond to.
Yeah.
Right. And I saw Yolanda was asking, how long do you have to sit before he shows up? That first encounter I had was, it felt instant. I don't know how much time it felt as though I were removed. Like I know it was something happening in the spirit because I didn't feel time in the same way. You know what
Uh-huh.
I mean? I don't know how to explain.
Yes.
But it's like, so really can't like put a number on it. I wasn't watching the clock. I don't know, but it felt like he was there and we did so much, and I boohooed forever. It felt like, um, but it was just wonderful. It was the most just freeing.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was so much peace and love and joy and freedom that there was an instant, I felt instantly like all the tension just went out of my body, and it was like, okay, I can just breathe. Just hit like literally I remember just taking a very deep breath, and just it was like when I exhaled, everything just released, and I just, started pouring tears, and everything just let go. But um I would say, to answer the question, how long does it take? That's where that individuality comes in.
Hmm.
Every experience is different for everybody, because he's going to meet you in the exact way he knows that you can receive it.
That's right. Yeah. And I know for me, it was the very first time that I can ever remember um, just sitting with the Lord and my heart. Like I didn't even have the words to articulate what I was wanting
Hmm.
or anything, but it was just the first time I had ever just sat in the quiet with
Yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
And it was just, there was a longing to just be with
yeah,
him.
yeah.
And I think that right there is perhaps for me, that's what was missing.
Hmm.
I'd never done that before. I
Hmm.
didn't even know about sitting like without anything, like just in the quiet. I just thought your time with the Lord, it is in the word, it is worshiping, it is journaling. Those are, and those have all been so much more like rich
Yeah,
since that, but I had never just sat in where it was just in the quiet.
yeah, yeah. And I think for people like us, the cutting off that's talked about there in verse 2, the cutting off, is that religious mindset, is that to-do list, is that idea of it has to look this way for it to be
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of the first things that got cut off of me. But I
Yeah.
wasn't cut off from the Lord. So
Yeah.
just wanted to speak to that the pruning, it's interesting the things that get pruned. Because you wouldn't think the thing that needed pruning was reading your Bible, right? Like you wouldn't think the thing that needs pruning is, um, because if you're, again, it goes back to motive. Now I now I have such a desire to be in scripture that it's not even a thought of like, should I or shouldn't I, or what am I. It's just I want to, but he had to prune that little bit for a while
Uh-huh.
to help switch my mindset, that it doesn't have to look legalistic and religious and all the shoulds. you know.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that was very interesting.
And I
Um,
feel like some of these conversations, they're difficult to have. And like we need a place to be able to just talk openly
yeah,
about this and um
yeah.
grapple with it, like to figure out what is it that the Lord is saying here. Because if you say stuff like that to just anybody,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know, and I think that's where the like being closed off, like I don't know, I don't have anybody to talk to about this because I'm wrestling with some stuff that they're not really addressing, and
yeah.
we're not saying that it's not good to read the Bible, but you know, and even in here in the notes, it talks about the where he's lifting up the branches. He says he doesn't remove these branches. This is in the notes, but he takes them to himself.
Mm,
As the wise and loving farmer, he lifts them up off the ground to enhance their growth.
yes.
Now, that's not how I've heard it before.
Yeah,
I've not heard it before like that. But when you hear it like that and you realize all
yeah.
that, I mean, God is constantly pursuing us
Mm,
in every
yeah,
every season, every area of our life, and his love is just it's so extravagant. And so when you realize like he just wants to lift us up.
yeah, yeah. Mm. It's so beautiful. And that's why I'm really excited to open up the academy and give women that space to come in and have these conversations and work through these things together, so you don't feel like I'm just trying to figure this out on my own and I don't know what the Lord's doing. And like, when you can come in community and know that it's a safe place to say to somebody, I think the Lord is pruning my worship time.
Mm.
There's not a lot of places you can say that, you know, or I think he's pruning maybe, how much time I'm spending reading scripture,
You can't
right?
just talk about that anywhere.
You cannot. This video might get taken down. I'm just kidding. But really, it's having, man, I wish I had that when I was going through the process and he was teaching me about the abiding, because I didn't have people. I had the one person that was kind of mentoring me at the time, but I didn't feel like there was anybody besides her in my life that I could go and say, like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, the Lord just told me this thing and it's something I've never heard before. And I have no, like, obviously, if he said it must be true, but like it goes against all these other things over here that I've been taught. So, like, what do I do with that? Right? Like having a place to go and like kind of wrestle with those things in community with people and hear other people say, me too. Like the just having that validation almost. I don't know if that's the right word. Um, but I feel like that community aspect is so important to bring people into these conversations.
Yeah, to be able to even share, well, I thought abiding with the Lord means that we're constantly, in a posture of prayer. And, it is really dependent on how much time you spend in the Word. And I think some of the things that have been eye-opening for me is the Lord encouraging me to play with my children.
Mm-hmm.
What does that have to do with abiding in the Lord? That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
but it's not what you might think.
Yeah. Talk about it.
That
Yeah.
that me spending time playing with my children and enjoying them and they're enjoying me and we're having so much fun together. Like the Lord delights in that.
Yeah.
And even just being aware of his presence and knowing like that was something that the Lord spoke to me about. And so like I'm even more aware of his presence in that moment because I know that he is rejoicing over the fact that I'm being a kid with my kids. But when you start out talking about it, you're like, one has nothing to do with the other. But wait a minute. Then you have a conversation and you're just kind of talking this out. And then you're realizing, yeah, this is part of abiding. And it's so much
Yeah.
more than what
Yeah.
we think.
Well, we want to compartmentalize things.
It's exactly what it is. Abiding is over here. My
Yeah.
time with my family and my children is over here. This is when I'm praying and spending time in the word and worshiping. That's when I'm abiding.
Mm-hmm.
So, but realizing it's everywhere. It's everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we think my quiet time happens at this time of the day, and that's my time with the Lord. And then it's almost like we have this idea of, and then I get up and go and do other things, and he just kind of sits there and waits for me to come back the next
To
day.
come back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, no, we are one. We are one. We're functioning as one,
We're
abiding.
never separate.
Yeah. So verse 4 from the mirror says, our seamless union, you and me and I in you, is pictured in the vine. The shoot cannot bear fruit outside of this union. In its abiding in the vine, fruit happens naturally, as with your abiding in me. Naturally. And this is why I say to people, the behavior stuff becomes effortless when you have the conscious awareness of union. There's no more of the, well, I want to do this, but I need to do this. There's no longer that struggle or that tension between like what's right and what's wrong, and like um yeah, the things I should do, but what I actually want to do, like all of that goes away. All of that goes away because you are the abiding, right? It says fruit happens naturally.
Wow.
It's just produced in you.
As
When
a result of the union and the constant connection.
yeah,
And if you think about it, I mean, if you think about the actual physical vine that you
yeah,
can see and touch,
yeah.
there is no, let me try to pull this out of here. It grows because of their connection, because there is no separation between that. And even just having seen a vineyard myself, like I can see that. And it's just like there is no separation. You can't tell where one ends and one begins, but it bears fruit because of the connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the
Wow.
idea of being separated from him, like you can't separate.
It's a lie
It's an absolute lie.
that we have believed
Yeah. Because
that.
because it's all like, again, when you're thinking about the vine to out to the grapes, there's no part in there that you can disconnect and figure out, well, which part is which. It's all one piece. And that's us and him. It's all one piece. And so this idea of I can be separated, I can be cut off from, it's physically not possible.
Mm-mm, it's not possible.
It's literally not possible to be separated. Now your awareness of being connected can change.
And that's what it is, though.
That's
If you believe the lie that you are separated and certain things that you do,
yeah.
um, quote unquote, mistakes or whatever, that we make will in fact separate. If that's what you believe, then that is the reality that you live out.
Mm.
But
Mm-hmm.
if the word says that I remain in life union with you, that we are one and there's no separation, that is the truth, actually. That is the truth, regardless of what you may feel
Yeah.
because of something. And when I don't know, I guess I can only describe it, like when our kid does something that is disappointing and they've made a poor choice and they become aware of it. Sometimes my kids will hide, and they don't want to look me in the eye because
Mm.
they're feeling what has just taken place. Like, and they know that they've done something that's not pleasing, right? And
That's
so they already recognize that.
yeah.
So they don't even want to look at me. And I
Yeah.
have to get them to, to really to come out, whatever. Well, my love for them hasn't changed, not one bit. But they've already played it out in their heads,
Yeah.
you know.
It's so powerful because what you literally just described is Genesis 3
Oh, in the garden.
in the garden.
In the garden, what did they do? They hid.
They
They didn't
immediately,
want.
they immediately, they made the separation from God. He didn't separate. He still came to them that day in the same way he had every day before and said, "Where are you? I want to be with you."
Oh, oh my
They're
goodness.
there in fear, trying to cover up and hide. And he's like, "Who told you? Who told you you were naked?" Right? That's exactly what you just described. Like your kids are going and hiding. That's what we do.
That, yes,
That's what we do with God. We think we can hide something from him. Well, you can't because you're still one with him, whether you think
that's
you are or
right.
not. He's always there. You're always in that union. Oh, it's just such a, yeah, such
But if
rich.
we have the understanding that we are one with him and his love has not changed despite the decision that we may have made, like all the more to go to him, to run to him in that moment and just be honest and open and vulnerable because he already knows. And
Yeah.
he hasn't cut you off
Yeah.
like you think he has.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. I mean, there's even the verse, I can't think of where it is right now. Ah, but it says we were separated in our minds.
Mm,
I can't think of where it is. I promise it's there. Somebody Google it. um, we we changed. God has never changed,
yeah.
and we are one with Him. And so, again, in the academy, that's one of the things that we really lean into is getting your awareness, right? That renewing of your mind to the truth that
The
this is what's
truth.
real,
This,
right? That the
yes. The
union.
reality, the truth of what the word says. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Man, I know we could keep going. We are out of time. If y'all like this conversation, please share it with people. And also, if you want to just send us a message, let us know that you enjoyed it. Maybe we need to do a part two. Maybe we need to keep going. Maybe we need to.
I feel like we just barely scratched the
I know we
surface
just we
because there is so much.
it's so deep. So yeah, y'all let us know if we need to if you want to hear more and and we can do that. Also, if you want to get information about the academy, it's Faith First Leader Academy, and I'll have the link down in the description of the video. And this is just a taste of some of the stuff that we get into in that. Um,
Yeah, it's powerful. It's life changing, like
yeah,
never will be the same.
yeah. Sabrina hasn't. I don't think you've has finished
I
all
haven't.
all the material. And I use do that in quotes because it's like we were talking about being versus doing. I very much stress to people, go at your pace. We're gonna abide, we're gonna do those things. That's most important. So I'm, not the taskmaster, like, did you get this done this week? And da, da, da. No, not at all. So you have the freedom to flow with Holy Spirit and do the things that because there will be things that he brings up to you that you're like, this is what we're working on this week, and it's maybe not related to
Hmm.
whatever I taught on that week, whatever.
And
It's
it takes time to process and work through a lot of the things, because it's not just a check. Like you're talking about a transformation from the inside out, which isn't that what happens when we come to Christ? If
Mhm.
we are in him and he is in us, there is an inner work, right? An inner transformation. We are made new. So the old is gone. But
Yeah,
I think it's that process of
yeah,
the old, him getting out the old.
yeah, yeah. Not trying to hang on to all the old things
That's right.
and add the God stuff on top of it.
No, no, we want to get
Gotta,
rid of the old and allow God permission to
yeah,
reveal those things that should not be there. And that's not just, well, did that today.
right,
Talking
right.
about some deep stuff that you didn't even know was there, that you have so much freedom when God shows you, like, this is why this is, going on, or this is, and you're just like, what?
Yeah. There's there's layers. There's layers
Yeah,
to it for sure.
yeah,
And again, he works with each person individually. And so,
yeah.
like, for some people, they may be able to take off a whole layer at a time. And then for other people, it's like, let's just peel that back a little bit and sit with it for a little bit. That was me.
Uh-huh.
It's a slow process for me. So, but there's no shame in that.
No,
Like, he's just totally there for it.
that's
Whatever
right.
you need to go at, right? Like, he works outside of time. And so there's no clock
Yeah.
on, we got to get you healed up so you can go do all these things I want you to do. That's not how he looks at it at all. And it's us who look at it like that, right?
Yeah.
And we want to put our time frame on it and be like, oh, well, I should be past this by now. This shouldn't still be bothering me, right? And all the shoulds come in. And that's where the condemnation comes from. It's not coming from God. It's coming from us putting our shoulds,
Hmm.
putting our expectations on things. And okay, that's a whole nother thing. I feel like we could just keep going and
I
going.
know. I know.
Uh,
Yeah.
but it's so good. It's so deep. It's like, yeah. So I have extended the time of the program. Again, I use all these words loosely because I don't ever kick anybody out. But um, as far as payments go, I'll say it that way. Payments have been extended. You can stay as long as you want. Um, so that's another perk. Payments have been extended. That helps get the cost down a little bit. And but definitely, if y'all have questions, I'm gonna have the link down there. You can go check out the page or just message me. Like I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I can't talk to you.
No, Susan's so easy to talk to. You should reach out to her.
Yes, reach out to me. Reach out to Sabrina. She can talk to you more about her experience and what it's been like. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know. I just want to stress to people like I've been through it too. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping women make the transformation because I've been on both sides of it and I know how good it is
Yes.
once you let go of the stuff, all the stuff we've been talking about, right? Let go of the shoulds and the expectations and the religious stuff and the legalism and the checklist and the, you know,
It is the thing that's missing that you don't know is missing. But
mm,
when you know it's that when you experience it, then you realize I cannot do life the same way ever again. But you don't know what you don't know.
yeah, yeah. And that's why it's so difficult to articulate
Uh-huh.
because you don't know, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And so we can talk about it, but until you actually experience it, you
Yeah.
really don't have the fullness, right? It's even like with salvation. There's a difference in praying a prayer and encountering God.
Whew. That you just opened up a whole new right
Okay.
there. That's that's a whole nother conversation. How much time do we have, right?
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stop talking. Y'all can please connect with us. Um, check out the link. Let me know if you have questions, if you want to just talk about stuff, whatever it is. And yeah, I think we probably need to continue the conversation.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much
So
more for
much.
sure.
All right. Well, y'all have a blessed day. Thank you for being with us.